Welcome to the Growth Now movement. I'm your host, Justin Shank. I'm an entrepreneur, speaker, and podcaster who years ago decided to go on a journey on how to grow in all areas of my life. What I found out was it's really a matter of focusing on the four pillars of life: business, relationships, spirituality, and wellness. And that's what we do here. We explore how to continuously grow in those areas, all while having a ton of fun doing it. I'm really excited you're on this journey with me. Now let's get to this week's episode. This week, I sit down with Ruby Fremon. Ruby returns to the show, and we get to talk about her incredible new book called Potent Leadership: Drop the Mask, Ignite the Real You, and Reclaim the Leader Within. You guys were blown away with her last episode when she talked about what an authentic leader really is and why we don't need to worry about social media and all the things that are happening there, and we need to be our authentic self. Well, now you get to hear a little bit more in-depth conversation about that. Plus, you can go grab her book. So go pre-order it now. It's out later in July, but go pre-order it now. Show some support because this book is absolutely life-changing. I've been able to look over a lot of it, and I'm really excited to say that it is legit. This is what the world needs, and this is what you guys need. You're going to love this conversation that I get to dive deep with Ruby and talk a little bit more about what is real leadership. Now, before we get to that episode, I want to let you guys know that Growth Now Summit Live tickets are on sale now, and Ruby is joining us in person. So not only do you get to enjoy her in this episode, but she's going to be at the summit, speaking on the stage, connecting with you guys at the VIP party. So grab your tickets now because the price goes up in a couple weeks. So growthnowsummit.com. Claim your ticket now. Come hang out with myself and Ruby and so many other amazing speakers because it is truly going to be a life-changing event. Growthnowsummit.com. Grab them today. Now, without further ado, let's get to the second time Ruby was on the show. Ruby, welcome back to the show.
Justin, I am so stoked to be here. I just feel like this is going to be a really, really awesome conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, you've been on the show before. We talked about leadership. The world, opinions, how things are spoken about now have drastically changed. And so we'll get into some of that, I'm sure, during this conversation. But obviously, you have a book coming out too, which is extremely exciting because I think the way you approach leadership, and I've told you this before, I think the way that you approach leadership is just such a refreshing take on how we are supposed to step into the world as a leader, how to influence, how to be a thought leader, how to lead an organization, whatever the case may be. I love your take on it. And so how long, I want to start here. How long has the book been in the works?
So I started the book writing process with my book coach in January of 2020, and January and February of 2020, we were just mapping things out. Like he was helping me extract the idea. And it wasn't until March, the first week of March, that I sat down to start writing the book, which was the week before the world shut down. Yeah,
which is crazy. And I just want to point out, and we talked about this before I hit record. So the tagline, obviously the book is Potent Leadership, but the tagline is Drop the Mask, Ignite the Real You, and Reclaim the Leader Within. I took the mask thing as very much what's happening in the world. You said it's not, like, right. It's how we approach it. And you've talked about masks and, you know, facing yourself and all that stuff, but what's your take on that now? Like, how do you feel the world's going to view this book when it's released? And like, what if they're like a little like offended by what you just said?
I mean, I'm sure people will be offended. I offend people on the daily with my shares, and that's okay. You know, if we as leaders worry are so distracted by the people that we may or may not offend, then that will prevent us from actually speaking our truth. Now, with Drop the Mask, I've always talked about masks. I think a lot of leaders wear masks and they perform, and they hide behind these facades and images. And so the Drop the Mask part of the tagline came naturally, but then I was like, it actually has a double meaning right now. So I'm certain that people are going to assume a lot of things just by looking at the cover. And it's safe to say that some of those assumptions are probably going to be correct. But it's such an important analogy to understand, because I truly, honestly believe that we all do this to some degree. We all wear masks, and we do this as a self-preservation technique and also to keep ourselves feeling safe, right? Like we all do this. I have done this. I still have caught myself doing this. It's just what we do to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah. I love this idea of wearing masks and leadership and all these other things, because if you go on the other side, a lot of people are going to hear this and go, okay, I'm going to rip this mask off and I'm going to let the world know immediately who I am. And sometimes I think, and I don't know how you feel about it, and that's what I'm getting to, but like, I feel like sometimes oversharing is a bad thing, right? Sometimes you do have to button up a little bit. Right. Like I always, one thing I say a lot is like, your wounds are for you to learn and the scars are for you to teach. And a lot of times people try and jump into that leadership role from the wounds and they're crying on the Instagram stories and they're doing all this stuff. What's your take on that? Like, how do we navigate that? If we're already in a leadership role, how do we continue to navigate the things that we need to fix while continuing to lead? If that makes sense.
Right.
As a question.
Totally. I mean, Brene Brown has made vulnerability this really popular tactic for leaders to use. And so one of my biggest pet peeves is when people like start storing themselves crying, almost like to prove like, look at me, I have feelings, look at me, I'm vulnerable, or take pictures mid breakdown. And I love what you said about the wounds versus the scars. I think a lot of people are simply either airing their dirty laundry when it shouldn't be aired, or they're showcasing their vulnerability as a tactic, almost to prove to their audience, look at me, I'm real, I'm vulnerable, follow me, etc. And that's not authentic. The piece that is missing in leadership and really just in the personal development world is integration. Like people are so quick to say, I went through this, let me teach it. It's like, but have you actually processed it? Have you actually sat with the emotions? Have you actually done your own healing and done your own work? Or are you just are you in such a rush to prove to the world that you're a leader that you bypass the actual work it takes to become a leader?
Yeah, no, I love that. Like, it's funny. I said earlier this year, there's so many people in the self-help space or the coaching space that the second they learn something, they want to monetize it. Right. And so like the beginning of this year, I lost 30 pounds. I did 75 hard. And I jokingly said to my girlfriend, like, it's time for me to be a health coach. It's time for me to show people how to get into shape. Like, it's a very weird thing. Like people think that because they've accomplished something, they have to then go and teach it. And that's just not the case. Right. So and I don't know if this is covered in the book. I have no idea, but I'm curious your thoughts. How does somebody know what's the word I'm looking for? What category they should be a leader in? How do they know? Like, what is the thing in my life that I need to step up and be a leader? Like, how do you know you're in that role?
I mean, I think that's very similar to the question of like, well, what's my purpose? You know, what am I expert in? And I think the online industry, like entrepreneurship, personal development, all of that, is almost like creating this false story that anyone can be an expert in anything. Find your niche, find your expertise, go do that thing, make millions of dollars and retire early. Like, it's just this weird, fucked up story. And what we really need to focus on is what feels most meaningful to us. And when it comes to like the traumas and the wounds and which rock bottom we want to specialize in, what you have to understand is we're going to have multiple rock bottoms. We're going to be met with multiple traumas in our life. It's not about the trauma itself, and it's not about the rock bottom moment itself. It's about the values that you hold through and through. Like, all of these traumas, all of these wounds, all of your experiences in life are going to bring you in a deeper relationship with your values and what's most meaningful and most important to you. So for example, for me, I have learned over, the past 10 years that integrity and truth are very, very important to me. So everything that I've done in my coaching work, I started as a self-love coach, then went into like transformational coaching, and now I'm doing the leadership stuff. It's always revolved around that integrity and truth, which is also about helping people ignite the integrity and truth within them. That is my thing. and everyone else can find their thing by really understanding what it is that they value the most.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love in your book how you've broken it down into 3 parts. I thought that was super unique. So I'm in the process now of writing my book, and I'm stealing all these ideas. I won't steal your part 1, 2, 3 idea. But I love it, right? I love the fact that it really comes across as like, okay, what are the 3 kind of pillars or phases of this whole entire leadership thing? And the first one is fake AF. And we all know what AF means, right? Fake as fuck. So as we think about this, like, what is the approach in the first part of your book as far as like this fake leadership, and how much is it happening? And is it happening everywhere? Is it happening in government? I know it's happening in the influencer online coach space, but where else is it happening? And what are some of the warning signs as somebody who said, hey, I want to follow this person? How do we know if they're real or not?
It's happening everywhere. I mean, at the time of recording this, just to bring this into the reality that we are living, there's been a leak of Fauci's emails. So it's happening everywhere on a grand scale. And again, like, people portray these characters or put on these performances or wear these masks in as desperation to be perceived in a certain way or to get a specific narrative or message across. And that's what we're seeing. Whether you are an influencer with, 20,000 followers and you're trying to portray this idea that you are an expert in XYZ, or whether you are working at the White House and trying to portray a specific narrative that is being fed to society. Like, we are all doing this. And the reason why it continues to happen is because it works, and with the influx of the internet and digital media and media, it's so easy to show up in fake ways. It's so easy to manipulate people. It's so easy to edit yourself, to filter yourself, to portray a specific image to please a perception that you want people to have of you. It's easy and it works. What the book is calling forth is for more leaders to drop the temptation of showing up in fake as fuck ways, and instead to dive deeper into their truth, to dive deeper into what's most important to them. Don't get so wrapped up in the image you're so desperate to portray that you forget who it is that you're actually truly here to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. That statement right there is so insanely powerful. Like, everybody should hit that little like back 15-second thing and listen to that again. And it's so true. I think sometimes, there's a question that's asked. It's a quote, but it's more of a question, which is, who were you before the world told you who you should be?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people lose that idea because we're told from almost day one who to be or what to be. And then a lot of times we get into a position of power or leadership, and we want to somehow benefit from it, right? Because we're missing the inner work. So therefore we want to fill it with power and money and greed and all those other things, right? And so these are things that you address in the book, right? And so in the second part, which is who you be, which is not proper English, but it's for a reason, right? So who you be, right? And I love the breakdown in all the parts. And by the way, I'll be totally transparent with my audience. I haven't read the book yet. I've only been able to glimpse it because I just got it a couple of days ago, but I can't wait to dive into it. You're talking about bypassing the inner work. Are you bypassing the inner work? And that's the piece that I was just alluding to with these people get into leadership roles, but they feel so empty. They try and fill it in other ways.
Totally.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the inner work and what that means and how people can kind of start to address that.
Yeah, the inner work is, it's personal development, it's spiritual development. It's having the courage to look at your shadows, those parts of you that you've perhaps dusted under the rug because at some point in your life you were told that they're wrong, they're not good enough, it's too much. And to be able to look at those parts of yourself and do the work where you can actually own every single facet of who you are, of who you be. Because when we don't own everything that makes us us, including the parts of us that we might still feel shame towards because of how other people have made us feel about these things. If we don't own those parts, then we're showing up as a completely diluted version of ourselves. This is why it's easy to wear masks and easy to perform. So the inner work, I like to say it like this. Like, I think that our society has created this like hustle mentality where everyone's in the rush to be something, to claim something, to achieve something, that we're forgetting the actual journey it takes to get there. Inner work is the journey. So I'm asking you not to pause, but to just slow down and put more focus and attention and intention on the journey itself, so that you're not, again, in such a rush to be seen in a certain way that you're completely missing the work it's going to take to be that.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times I think people get to a certain point, and there's a ton of people that come to mind as I'm saying this in the coaching and influencer space, who once they get there, they think they can stop doing the work, right? Once they reach some sort of financial peak or follower peak or whatever, they're done doing the work. But the reality is the inner work is always needed. Like no matter what, I'm sure you have coaches, Ruby, I have coaches. We all have these things that as we go through things, we keep working on and pouring into ourselves. And I think that's another piece that's missing. This is going to be terrible to say, but some of my least favorite people in the world are the people who think they're too good to go to do something.
Oh,
like
100%.
Too good. Like, dude, I get pitched for people to speak at my event all the time, like literally 20 times a week. And I'll say to people like, hey, I admire what you're doing. All the speaker lineup is already filled. I was like, but the best way to get on stage is to come this year. Build a relationship with me, be a part of my community. And there's a good chance you can be on the stage next year. No, I don't think, I literally had a guy say to me one time, I don't think you know who you're talking to. I go, you're right, I don't, which is why I'm saying come to my event. Like this is the problem with leadership right now, is they get to a point and then it becomes a power trip, and it becomes so much of that. Right now, obviously, as you were writing this book, there was a massive change in the world, right? Everything shifted. COVID happened. When this whole thing began, I was not a conspiracy theorist. I'm very much a conspiracy theorist now, because they all seem to be coming true.
Let's just call it what it is. Truth seekers. We are truth seekers.
I love that term so much better. And I love doing the work. And you had a shift in perspective as you were writing this, and had to go back and rewrite some of that. Let's talk about that for your own personal journey, because that's part of you doing the work.
Yeah. So first of all, writing a book on leadership in the year 2020, I mean, it was insane. But again, I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I actually ended up taking a little work retreat with my husband to Joshua Tree when I first started writing the book. We both had our projects to work on. And I actually wrote probably like 4 chapters while we were there for a week. Then we get back to LA, where we lived at the time, and the shutdown happens and COVID becomes this thing. I didn't know at that time where I stood on things. I just knew that everything felt super confusing, and I needed just to take a beat. So I continued writing at a slower pace. And I think it was by April, I took a break. I told my writing coach, I was like, look, I don't know what's going on right now. All I know is I need to pay a little more attention to this and just put my book on pause. My book was supposed to come out September 2020. It's not, right? We're in 2021. Now it's coming out. And I actually had to go through my own process of disillusionment, of acknowledging the belief system that I had at that point in time, while also welcoming what a more aligned belief system, something that felt more aligned with me. I did a lot of investigating. I did a lot of digging. I was listening to all sides of what was going on. And I started to align with the things that actually resonated most with me, what actually felt like truth, what aligned with my values. But in doing so, my entire paradigm shifted, like my beliefs around politics, about the medical industry, about our world, about people, about the media. Everything shifted. And the more I researched and kept an open mind, the more I started to see. And then the more I started to see that some of the stuff that I was writing or had already written was just not aligned. Right. Like I ended up, by September, when I really started putting this book together, I deleted 1 chapter completely and I rewrote 4 other chapters. That's a lot of work when you're on the tail end of writing a book. I mean, that completely messed me up. And it was hard because on one hand, I knew I was delaying my book. So again, I could have like rushed and bypass the inner work to just put out this product. but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to ensure that the book I put out felt 100% aligned with what I believed was a good product and a solid message that I truly wanted to convey. And so it took a few extra months to birth this book, almost a full extra year, but it's here now. And that's the part that I would love to see more leaders do, is just to practice congruence and integration and facing themselves and doing their own work instead of just doing all of this external work.
Yeah, I love the fact that you delayed the book, because it's exactly what you're talking about. Like, if you didn't delay the book and put something out that you didn't 100% believe in or felt aligned with, then it means nothing. So, and this by the way, this happens all the time. Like we talked about this the last time you were on the show. Like, it's just about pushing it out and pushing it out and pushing it out, and living this fake life just to get in front of the right people or do the whatever, right? Girl, wash your face. And so, you know, as we're talking about all these things, sorry, I had to throw that out there.
Yeah.
You know, do you know about that whole Rachel Hollis thing?
I heard about it, and then I saw everyone exploding online, and I was like, this is like one of those things that I just don't want to get into because this feels like a distraction.
it was a distraction. But it was definitely one of those things, but it continues to lay the examples down of these individuals that have been put up on a pedestal aren't living the life that you think. And this is proof that, Ruby, you belong on that pedestal with these individuals, because the authenticity that you bring and the extra work that you do just to make sure that what you're saying is in line with what you're teaching. And I think that that's so insanely important. So thank you so much for doing that. And so let's talk a little bit about you personally, as far as like, you know, as you're going through this and doing the research and seeing what's going on in the world, what did it do for you, like emotionally? Like for me, I'm like, I've finally figured out, I never understood the power thing. Like, it was really hard for me to be like, I don't get it. Why would Bill Gates care about this stuff? Like the guy's got everything he needs. And so it really made me go inward and go, wow, there's actually people that don't have my best interest in mind. In this world. And that kind of shook me a little bit. Like, I got a little upset about it. Like, what was your take in this whole entire thing of like, oh wait, it's not actually about me?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we talked a little bit about this in our last episode. So I believe that the first people to kind of awaken to all of what's happening are the people who have been rubbed the wrong way by the medical industry. And I shared my story on our last recording together, where I became an addict through prescription drugs, anxiety medication. And so for me, I was coming into this already understanding that people in quote unquote power with degrees and titles are just human beings, and human beings, every single human being is capable of committing error. So I already came into this knowing that. With that being said, it's definitely been an emotional roller coaster. I mean, the things that I have been accused of, the DMs that I receive. I mean, I've had like death messages, like, I hope you get this and die, type messages, which, you know, some days I can laugh it off and other days it's like, this is a lot. I would say now I get fewer of those because my entire audience has kind of shifted. But it's definitely been an emotional roller coaster, especially when it comes to your loved ones and your friends and family. And I mean, I just recorded an episode on this. I think that this pandemic has brought us closer to our own personal values. And in coming closer to what we value most in life, we're now seeing the dissonance between us and like other people who may value things differently. And through that, we have to separate ourselves from a lot of people. So that part has been tough. But at the end of the day, you know, I feel good knowing that I am taking a stand for something that I believe in, that I truly, truly believe in. Has it shifted my business? 100%. And that's been the hardest part, is like, now I'm just gearing back. I paused a lot of my business. Now I'm just getting back into building my business back up again. But I had to do that because I wanted to ensure that every program offer that I was putting out there was aligned with what I value and attracting the type of clients that I really now want to work with.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, you know, when you really work with the people that you want to work with, life is so much easier. it's so much more fun. Like it's just, you don't deal with the BS and anything like that, which I absolutely love. And look, we're talking about the parts of your book, right? I want to get back to the book. Part 3 is potency. Talk a little bit about that. Because I saw this and I was like, potency. I like the term. Is this like the arrival? Like you've done the work and now what do we do? How do we get this out into the world?
I'm going to preface this with a question that I think most, if not all, business coaches and strategists will ask their clients. Well, what is your USP? What's your unique selling proposition? What makes you unique? I have always struggled with that question. I've hated it. It's like, you want me to find one thing that makes me unique?
Yeah.
And so my entire journey has been uncovering the truth that it's not one thing that makes you unique. It's an accumulation of multiple things, traits, your tonality, your voice, your expression, your physical appearance, your spiritual beliefs, your values. It's everything put together. And it's the integration of it all that makes you unique. And that's what I describe as potency. And I say that potency is the medicine that you get to offer yourself and the world. This is you, when you are showing up in your potency, this is you showing up in the fullest expression of who you be. Everything. And even those things that other people have perhaps dismissed you for or shamed you for, it's you taking ownership for all that makes you you and showing up in that energy. That is potency. And I believe that if more leaders showed up in this way, it would make the world a better place. That doesn't mean that everyone's potency is going to be the right medicine for you, but it's just so much easier to be who we are than to continue putting up these performances. And that's what I think not enough people realize, because they've been stuck in a performative state their entire lives.
No, I love that. And, I love when I hear from people who listen to the podcast and I meet them, or they come to the event and I meet them there and they say, you're exactly the same person as you are on everything, like in person, you know what I mean? And I'm like, that's incredible. Like that means I'm doing something right. I think a lot of people are hearing what you're saying and they're going, yeah, but I've got this one person in my life who I don't want them to leave me. But if I mention this or acted out this way or did this thing, they might not like it. Or, hey, there's this whole community of people that are paying me $600,000 a year for my income, and I don't want to rub them the wrong way, but I'm feeling like I need to say something. How do you walk yourself through that process of, and you did this in the last year, like, how do you walk yourself through that process of, I need to do this? Like, what's the breaking point and what should they expect?
I mean, ask yourself the question, well, what's most important to me? Like, is keeping an image more important to you, or is being you more important? And then what feels better? And not everyone is going to choose. I mean, the path of least resistance is to just keep doing what you're doing. That's the perception, but it's actually, there's more resistance in that because it takes more energy again to perform and fake your way through this, and to like keep quiet when you really don't want to keep quiet. It also, like you mentioned, it's better to work with clients that you love. And it's natural for you to evolve away from the types of clients that you used to work with. So it's a much tougher decision to say, hey, wait a second, I need to evolve. I need to evolve my programs, maybe even my pricing, my clientele, my messaging. But the benefits that you'll reap at the end of it are going to be so, so good. And it also doesn't mean that you have to shut everything down in order to rebuild. It can be a slow transition, right? You can keep making the money off of this program that may not feel aligned anymore while building out another program that you can then funnel in this new audience or your evolved audience into.
Yeah, no, that's just so good. Like if you guys are listening to this is why you need to go get this book. Like, these are the things that are going to change the world. If we can truly adopt this idea and adapt to everything that's happening around us, it's going to change the world. And that's why I love what you're doing. So what do you feel like if you had to say to somebody, hey, you read this book, what's their biggest takeaway? What's going to be the biggest thing that they take away from the new book?
That's a great question. I think
there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. Let me nail it down to maybe the one most potent, is that there's power in your potency, meaning there's power in being yourself. And that's like something that I would love for everyone in this world to really understand, like truly understand.
Yeah, no, I love that. Now, obviously the book comes out in 2 weeks from today. So it comes out in 2 weeks, but I know people can go and get it now. Where do they go to get it? Where are they going to get this book?
Yes.
And what's all the good stuff?
Yeah, so you can go to potentleadership.com and pre-order the book. And everyone who pre-orders the book will get 3 bonus activation audios plus complimentary access to 3 online training and Q&A sessions that are going to be hosted live with me. Plus, you'll be entered to win one-on-one coaching and mentorship sessions. So head to potentleadership.com. You can also text hashtag potent leadership to 1-781-336-0160 to be added automatically.
And I'll throw a little bonus too. If you guys go get this book, email me, justin@growthnowmovement.com, the receipt that you bought the book, and I will send you a discount code to get 10% off at Growth Now Summit Live, because Ruby will be there. She's going to be on the stage. We're going to have a good time. So come hang out with her, do all that fun stuff. And look, get the book. Learn from her, fall in love with her, get 10% off the event, come hang out with her. Don't be creepy. Just come hang out with her. And it'll be a great time. And so Ruby, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap everything up here?
Yeah, just to really, in the world that continues to change every single day, continue to practice your discernment and filtering what feels real and what doesn't. Just because someone's an expert doesn't mean you have to trust them. This goes from anyone from health officials to government to personal development, quote unquote, gurus. Go with the people that you feel most aligned with, follow them, be inspired by them, and let yourself be that for others.
I love it. Ruby, thank you so much for coming on the show a second time and sharing your message. But again, putting this very, very important book out into the world. I think it will truly make a huge difference for so many people, not even the people that read it, but then the people they impact as well. So thank you so much.
Justin, thank you so much for having me back here. I am so excited to hit the stage with you. I can't, it's going to be amazing. Yeah. And thank you to our listeners.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you guys soon, but get the book, go get it now. Make sure it's delivered at your door the day it comes out, because it's going to be a game changer. So Ruby, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.